Who could be Denver's next game changer? Round 2 could be loaded, and we're breaking down the must-watch prospects. We'll dive into Eli Stowers' speed and playmaking ability, Jadarian Price's versatility in the backfield, and even the potential of Jake Golday to shake up the Denver Broncos linebacker room. Plus, we'll analyze which of these sleepers best fit Denver's system, and which ones could give the Broncos a boost to make a Super Bowl run. Welcome to 5280 Playbook. I'm Payton, bringing you football from a mile high. And if you love the Denver Broncos or the NFL, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video. Alright, let's talk some football. First things first, we've got Jake Golday. Jake Golday comes out of the Cincinnati Bearcats. He's been a linebacker there for 2 years now. He came out of Central Arkansas Bears and then transferred over in the transfer portal to Cincinnati. In 2024, Jake had 58 total tackles with 28 solo tackles and 1.5 sacks with 2 forced fumbles. He basically doubled his production in 2025 with 104 tackles and 38 solos. He also had 3.5 sacks and 1 forced fumble. Now, I'm no genius, but that's pretty dang good. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, but could he actually fall to the Broncos? And obviously, you never really know, but I did do several mock drafts, and through these mock drafts, he was there pretty consistently. But he's not the only linebacker we're going to go over. We're also going to go over Josiah Trotter. Trotter comes out of Missouri, and in 2024, he had 93 total tackles and 37 solo tackles, with even an interception. In 2025, he had 84 total tackles with 43 solo tackles and 2 sacks. And he's 6'2", 237 pounds. He's a little bit smaller than Jake at 6'4". But an interesting one that did fall once to the Broncos in my mock drafts was Kyle Lewis. Kyle Lewis is 6'1", 220 pounds, so smaller than both of the previous linebackers. However, in 2023, he had 19 total tackles with 5 solos. In 2024, he had 100 total tackles with 45 solos. And in 2025, he had 79 total tackles with 43 solos. I forgot to mention in 2024, he also had 7 sacks. In 2025, he had 3. In both years, he had 1 forced fumble. And in 2024, he had 4 interceptions. And in 2025, he had 2 interceptions. He's a really solid coverage back. And if he falls to the Broncos at pick 62, there's no way that the Denver Broncos don't draft him. I mean, I guess there is if there's a better option, but still. And another one that kept falling to the Broncos in my mock drafts was Eli Stowers. Eli Stowers would be an insane pick. He would 100% contribute at the tight end position. In 2023, he had 35 receptions for 366 yards. In 2024, he had 49 receptions for 638 yards. And in 2025, he had 62 receptions for 769 yards and 4 touchdowns. And he has big playability, with his longest reception being 67 yards. He would be a great pickup for the Broncos if he does fall to the Broncos at pick 62. Another one that I'm a big fan of is running back Jadarian Price. Jadarian Price comes out of Notre Dame, and he is an absolute stud. In 2023, he had 47 carries for 272 yards. In 2024, he had 120 carries for 746 yards. And in 2025, he had 113 carries for 674 yards. He averaged 6 yards per carry and had 11 touchdowns last season. This guy is a stud, because he did all this with not even being the starting back. The starting back for the Fighting Irish was Jeremiah Love at the time. So the fact that he saw this much production as a second back is pretty impressive. Now, an interesting one that fell to the Broncos, just one of my mock drafts that I thought about including, was Germie Bernard. Germie Bernard comes out of Alabama, and he's a really good wide receiver. In 2024, he had 50 receptions for 794 yards, and in 2025, he had 64 receptions for 862 yards with 7 touchdowns. Now, after the Waddle trade, we really have no need for a wide receiver. However, if he does fall, would you be interested in a pickup? I just thought about including him in this video, as I thought it was kind of unique to the situation. But let me know your thoughts. Would you be interested in picking up a wide receiver with pick 62 if it's Germie Bernard? To keep things going, we're going to go over all possibilities. And one of those possibilities is Gennings, who's an offensive lineman, specifically an offensive tackle, and he is an absolute beast. He's 6'5", 315 pounds, and to me, his hair says it all. He would definitely be an interesting pickup for the Denver Broncos. Another player that I consistently saw fall to the Broncos was Emmanuel Pregnon. Now, I'm not sure if I'm saying his name correctly, so I do apologize, but he was born in Denver, Colorado, so he's a hometown boy. And I don't know much about him, but I do know that he's an Oregon Duck, and we could potentially pair him up with our other Oregon Duck, Bo Nix. But he would be another really solid pickup. However, he does play guard position, so that may not be our biggest need at the time, but it would still be interesting. Moving on to the defense, we have Keith Abney II out of Arizona State. He's a really good player, as in 2024, he had 52 total tackles with 34 solo tackles with 3 interceptions. In 2025, he had 44 total tackles, 36 solo tackles, 1 sack, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, as well as 2 interceptions. So he's definitely a dog, and he would pair it pretty well with the Broncos secondary, but I just don't see that being the biggest need at the time. Another defensive back that did fall to the Broncos during my mock drafts was Treydan Stukes. Treydan Stukes has tons of experience in college, but with his latest in 2025, he had 52 total tackles, 24 solo, 1 sack, and 4 interceptions. So you could say he's a pretty good ball hawk. He also had 6 pass defenses, but if you compare him to Keith had 12 pass defenses, so I mean, you pick your poison. But again, I think the Broncos secondary, as far as corners go, I think we're pretty solid on. However, one position that we could look to add, even in the second round, could be safety. AJ Haulcy fell to the Broncos in just one of my mock drafts, so it's very rare that he actually would fall, but if he's there, we've got to take him. He had 49 solo tackles last year with 89 total, 1 forced fumble, as well as 3 interceptions and 4 pass defenses. He was a problem on the LSU defense, and to be honest with you, he would add another level to our defense to fit well with Talanoa Hufanga and Brandon Jones. Now, Derrick Moore comes out of Michigan, who is an edge. He did follow the Broncos a few times, and the Broncos could look to add an edge in this year's draft. In 2025, he had 30 total tackles with 19 solo, 3 pass defenses, and 10 total sacks, with 2 forced fumbles. He's a really solid football player and would make a big difference on the Broncos defense. Another interesting one that followed the Broncos a few times was Dennis-Sutton. Danny Dennis in 2024 had 42 tackles with 24 solo. He had 8.5 sacks with 2 forced fumbles and 1 fumble recovery. In 2025, he had 42 total tackles as well with 26 solo and 8.5 sacks with 3 forced fumbles. So he's very consistent with his numbers. He would be a really interesting piece for the Broncos to add if he is available. So now again, these are all second round options. These guys more than likely will not be there in the 4th round. It kind of just depends on how they fall and everything else. Now, the defensive lineman that only fell once to the Denver Broncos was R. Mason Thomas. Thomas comes out of Oklahoma, and in 2025, he had 26 total tackles with 18 solo, 6.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 fumble recovery. In 2024, he had 23 total tackles with 13 solo and 9 sacks, with 1 forced fumble and 2 fumble recoveries. He'd be an interesting piece to add to the defensive line, considering we just lost John Franklin Myers. But that's all the potential prospects that I saw consistently fall to Denver, but let me know which one you think would fit best. Who would you like to see? Particularly, I'm more of an offensive guy. I think we should go after either a running back or a tight end, and I would be a really big fan of either Jadarian Price or Eli Stowers. One thing to note though is Eli Stowers was one of the only ones that actually fell to the Broncos consistently. So if he's there, you probably need to take him. All right, Broncos country, that's the latest on Denver's roster shakeups and draft targets coming out of Denver. We just wrapped up our round 2 Broncos draft breakdown. Who do you think has the best chance to be the next game changer in Denver? Drop your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next Broncos update. And as always, tune in next time for football from a mile high. High five.